Yeah, the Unionport Bridge project is a really interesting project in that it's such a tight and complex site. The original bridge was designed by H&H back in the 1950s. And one of the unique things about it is that originally it was twin double-leaf bascules. And at the time that it got built, it was the only bridge in the area, and they had just built the Whitestone Bridge. Later on, in the 1960s and the 1970s, traffic had grown to the point that they built the elevated interchange above. And because they built that elevated interchange, there was less traffic down at the roadway level. So they took out one of the bascules, and that was kind of a problem because at that point there was no way to maintain the one remaining bascule, and it got into bad shape. And we got brought in to come up with a solution to replace the bridge. H&H was the prime consultant on the Unionport Bridge replacement project. We did all of the work on the project, really. I mean, we had some subs for our M and WBE roles, but basically we did the structural, mechanical, electrical, geotechnical work all in-house, and it really turned out well because we were able to engage lots of different groups at H&H.
During the design phase, it was very difficult to establish the staging scheme. How are you going to, the reason why they haven't repaired this bridge in so long is because it is just, once you impact the bascule, you have to take it out of service. So to come up with a staging scheme that would allow that to remain in service and then switch over to our new bridge in a seamless fashion was one of the key challenges. This construction did bridge COVID. We were a couple of years into it when COVID started, and that posed its own challenges with access to the work site, the eventual issues with supply chain, and there were a lot of things that did need to be modified. Minimizing impacts, I think one interesting part of this bridge reconstruction is we did shift at one point. There's a base level of service. You have to provide 2 lanes in each direction, which was maintained throughout construction. When the temporary bridges went in, temporary bridges were actually on a preferred alignment, and many people in the community assumed that those were actually the final bridges because it was such an improvement over the existing. Throughout construction, the temporary bridges were in place for some length of time. The traffic flow and the interconnections with the roadway networks on both sides actually did work relatively well.
This is a federally funded project, so that means that we had involvement from the New York State Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration to approve the design. And ultimately it ended up, this was not an inexpensive project. It's about a $230 million job. And in order to get approval for that, we had to go through a design approval process, which was completed at the end of 2015. So once that design approval was achieved, we were able to go to construction, or we were able to go to final design, completed that final design, and go to construction in 2017. One of the exciting things about a project that is complex like this is you do the design, but you also see how the contractor executes the design. You can see what really worked out well, and areas that maybe you could do a little bit better, and I think that's always a learning process. It's one thing we do at H&H is we try to keep people involved throughout the duration of the project, and I think that's a really positive thing. So were there complex situations? Yes. Were there things that we couldn't overcome? No, we really did it. I think we had the right solution for this job.
Well, one unexpected change that did occur in the project was the shift of the staging scheme. The contractor proposed temp movable bridges, and to incorporate that into a contract after it was already let was fairly complex because we needed to establish specs that they needed to meet for that movable bridge. We needed to revise milestones that were in the contract to make sure that the city wasn't giving up too much of their leverage, because they did have portions of the contract that were subject to liquidated damages, and it did have to be carefully thought through to make sure that the city was not going to lose control of the project by allowing a change that couldn't be controlled.
The City of New York Department of Transportation has a separate group they call the MIO group, and they're involved in the maintenance and operation of of their bridges. We provided extra access to get down into the piers. We provided a broad space that was isolated from flooding conditions, so we kept the bridge well above the floodplains by just the design that we used. And then also the space that we created by going with a single leaf bascule. We had all the machinery at one end with the exception of the locks, and all of the operating machinery was kept in one space, which made it easier for the operator or the maintenance personnel to get in there. The idea of making it low maintenance really was in there from the beginning. We also went with twin single leaf bascules, which means that if for some reason one of the leaves had to be taken out of service for some kind of repair or maintenance operation, the other one could remain in service. So maintenance was a very important aspect of the project throughout, and keeping everything above the flood levels and so on was also a big requirement for the project.
There wasn't a single standalone, there was things that are, in everything we do, we try to do the state of the art. But I think in Unionport, the beauty of it was that every component of the bridge or of the site required a different, we had unique and bespoke foundation types depending on where you were. If you were on the west approach, we had a overhead restriction working inside the pier. So we used micropiles, and we were able to start on construction and get a significant amount of work done before the public really even saw that construction was going on. We were putting in hundreds of micropiles inside that structure and creating a mat foundation. When you move over to contrast that with the east approach, where we used a ground improvement system, we had blue sky, so that was the much more economical solution in that instance.
Stakeholder coordination is part of the overall process for any project we're involved in, especially projects that are in urban sites. We do have outreach with the various community boards. This area really doesn't have homeowners per se, but there are businesses in the area. And one of the things is during the course of construction, they actually constructed a new Amazon facility, a distribution center, and we had to communicate with them throughout construction, make sure that their work could continue, and then once they were up and running, to make sure that there was adequate ways for their traffic to get into their facility. So we were actively coordinating throughout construction, throughout the design phase and throughout construction. The other stakeholders include mariners on the creek, and it was very important for us to do outreach with the upstream mariners. There was an oil depot upstream that ultimately ended up closing, but during the design phase, we worked with them very directly. We actually determined the sizing of their vessels and frequency of their passing through the bridge and so on, making sure we had means for them to get through during construction. So there was a very robust coordination process.
I think one key way that H&H made a difference on this project is just, the reliability and continuity. Bill, myself, several others at H&H, we've been on this project from its inception, and we've seen it completely through construction. And for projects that run this long through the full phase of design and construction, it is important to have those people that can tell the story or explain something that might not make sense now why you did what you did then, but there always was a rationale.
One of the things H&H prides ourselves in is our ability to work hand in hand with the owner, and in this case the City of New York Department of Transportation, to deliver these projects. We understand that there's not always one perfect solution. We present a range of solutions. We work with the city to figure out which one is the best overall solution. And economics is important, but also maintainability, duration of construction, and how the community is going to perceive the project. These are all important aspects. And at the end of the day, we ended up with a bridge that was wider, easier to get into the adjoining businesses, safer, better geometry, and had not only a sidewalk, but it also had a shared use path. And as a cyclist, I really appreciate the ability to bicycle across this bridge. One
thing also that I'll say about jobs like this that run for such a long time through prelim design into final and CSS is that it's great opportunities. There's so many junior staff in New York that maybe they were junior staff when we started on prelim and final design, but to be able to see this project through construction Now some of them are, project engineers or even project managers on their own projects, and to be able to take those lessons into the next project is a great benefit.
At one point, we had 11 offices involved in the project doing various bits and pieces of the project, but at the end of the day, we got the job done, and it all came together, and really proud of the way it got worked out. I'm also proud of the fact that other teams had tried to solve this problem before us and couldn't get it done. We got it done, and now there's a bridge that's open to traffic, and the community has a better way to get around.
This project has meant quite a bit to me. As you're getting on in years, you start taking on larger and larger roles and projects, and this was one where it was a significant project where I was able to play a key role and eventually run the day-to-day during CSS, and it's something that I'm definitely proud of. And it's a lot of time has passed and life has been lived. I've been married and have 2 kids now, which wasn't the case before it started. Now I have a daughter in the 2nd grade, so it really does become a part of your life.